So it's been 2 months since I quit my job. I resigned from a call center position and I'm on a healing and deliverance journey. And I won't say that it's been easy, but it's been extremely enlightening. And there have been some very rewarding moments. Learning a lot about God's character. He's strengthening me in my faith. I'm unlearning a lot of things. It's been crazy to see what has been revealed in this process. My personality type is very much like, I think it's type A personality, where you like things to be organized, you follow routines, and you're not very spontaneous. You like, like your movements are calculated. There's a contrast there between that personality type and like walking by faith, because you do have to have a childlike, blind faith in order for you to fully trust God and be surrendered to God. A bit about me: I was raised in the church. I always like to say that I was raised on a pew in the hood. And I saw, what I mean by that is just that I saw two different dynamics growing up. I saw, you know, one parent was saved and the other parent was not really. And so I saw addiction, what that looked like. And I also saw a Christian lifestyle. So I saw like a duality in my home from the beginning. And so later, when I started to live this double life, I didn't realize like that's what I saw. And I'm not blaming my parents for anything. I believe that God works all things together for our good, and it's all connected. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that God is intentional about what he does. And so, much of my upbringing impacted how I live and think and operate as an adult. My mom was a little bit stricter, on the stricter side with me. I talk about this on my podcast, but I think she kind of knew that I was prone to being the fast one. I have an older sister, and me and my sister are like opposites when it comes to like our upbringing, where we have some similarities in how we do things, and there's parts of my mom that dwell on the inside of the both of us. Um, I lost my mom when I was 15. She passed away from complication of diabetes. She had congestive heart failure. And so they ruled out her death as cardiac arrest. So originally from Pasadena, California, I moved to Texas, North Texas, in 2020. And that was just after I had got married. I got married in April of 2020. And I had my second child in January of 2021. So I did not know when I got to Texas that I was pregnant. I moved in the summer of 2020. Since I've moved to Texas, my life has changed a lot, and I have changed. And the experiences that I've had over these past 6 years, almost 6 years, um, has been life changing. So I thank God, because He knew that I needed to a change of pace and I needed to change my environment. And He put me in a place where I could grow. And I did not know that it would be here that I faced some of my greatest challenges that I've ever experienced, as well as some of my greatest moments of peace and joy. Some of my greatest rewards have been since I've been here. Right now, I'm in the pickup line for my baby girl. She'll be 5 soon, and then I have a teenager. So, a little bit about me: I I find that I like to just kind of tell stories organically, and so that's kind of my vibe. And so you'll hear me bounce around, or you might hear me repeat stuff over and over. Um, Sorry about that in advance. I don't do it on purpose, I promise. Um, but things that have impacted me, or things that jokes that are still funny to me, I might tell them more than once. So this is all a disclaimer so that you know what to expect when you come to this channel. There's a quiet before the storm, before the kids get picked up. So I find it to be a good time to come and talk and chat. I am in the middle of a divorce, and that alone has been extremely stressful, frustrating, hurt, painful. However, God is showing me a lot throughout this process, and I want to talk about it. My goal is to share my testimony. I'm really not the most comfortable with sharing intimate details about certain things in my past. However, I know that I am called to share my testimony, and so I will be obedient in that, because my desire is that someone finds freedom in my story, that someone finds hope in my story, that someone finds joy in my story and encouragement. And it's been a long time coming. I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off until I finally couldn't run anymore. And I just, it's time. What better time than at the beginning of a new year to start something new, to go for it? And I want to just encourage you, if you're on this same path, if you're wanting to start a new job, or want to start a YouTube channel, or start a new business, or write a book, start a podcast, if you want to be an actress or an actor, a playwright, a screenwriter, you want to, be a content creator, you want to go and travel to a new place or move to a new place. And I hope that this encourages you, and know that God goes before you. So nothing takes him by surprise, right? You are exactly where you are supposed to be right now. Nothing catches him by surprise. I hope that that encourages you. So, yeah, I am 2 months post quitting my job. I was in a very toxic environment. I was working around a lot of demonic forces. I'm gonna just say it. I was working with witches. Witches don't necessarily like me, and it's not them as the people, because I feel like some of the people might have been cool, but the spirit that is inside of them, that they are operating out of, does not like me, because I belong to God. Sometimes it might be that, because the Bible teaches us that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, right? So that means that everything is spiritual. And whether we want to acknowledge that or not, it is what it is. With that being said, once I realized what I was dealing with, God started calling me to pray, to walk around, and to pull down strongholds, and to flat out cast demons out the building. I remember going to work one day, and I walked up to the door, and I felt, I couldn't see anything. Nobody was pushing me, but I felt what a physical presence, that I could feel a push, like it didn't want me to come into the building. Another time, I pulled into the parking lot, and then I just was overwhelmed with, like, sadness and depression and despair. And I just was like, is this like me, or like what's going on? And the Holy Spirit told me to pray over the building, and to continue to do that every single day before I go there. and I was, obedient in that. But I remember one time like praying with my supervisor, and I told her, I was like, it's witches doing what witches do around here. I said it's a lot of a warfare around here. And she kind of looked at me like she was like, and she said that she was a believer as well. And so she was like, wait, like, are you serious? And she was like, we need to talk because I feel a lot of darkness around here. And I was like, yeah. I said it's a lot of witchcraft going on around here. So I didn't realize that there were some things that I was holding and some things that I needed to get free from that I didn't. Even though I was raised in church, I didn't, I was backsliding. I wasn't trying to follow God for a time in my life. In 2014, I rededicated my life to Christ, and I decided that I was going to be all in. That came after a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, a lot of things that I was bound by addiction and just wickedness. There were so many things that I was struggling with and bound by that I didn't even realize. And I didn't know where it came from. Like, how did this even get here? I used to not even have a problem with anger. But then it came. I struggled with lust, and I struggled with pride, and I was cursing people out. Like, I was like angry and bitter and just bound by a lot of things. And God freed me and delivered me. And I held on to a couple of them things. And it wasn't until 2025 when it all came crumbling down, like, and God just started to expose not only the stuff inside of me, but the situations around me and the people around me that meant me no good. And so God just started pulling me away, like pulling me out of a toxic relationship, pulling me out of a toxic work environment. It was like the great reckoning that took place, and it was extremely painful and extremely hard, but I made it through to be able to tell the tale today. And so I promised God that I would tell my testimony. And I didn't know if I was going to make it through that season. I didn't know. And now that I'm coming through the end of it and I've stepped into a new season, um, I'm still in the healing process. I'm actually, I feel like right in the middle of it. As I am here, I'm going to tell this testimony. That's my commitment to the Lord, and I'm so grateful for everything that He's done. I want to move out of obedience, but I'm also sharing from a place not just because He called me to do it, but because I want to. I have to. The Bible says that we overcome by the word of our testimony, so it's necessary for my healing, my deliverance, to tell my story. I overcame a lot. I've dealt with a lot of things, dealt with betrayal and dealt with narcissism. I've dealt with abuse. I've dealt with financial issues. I mean, broke. I was put out of my home. I lost my car. I I struggled with in my health. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes as well. I'm believing God to heal me from that. I struggle with pride. Pride has been the longest battle that I've had out of everything. And it's taken me up until now to finally get free. And I'm so grateful. I have to talk about that and the stronghold that pride has over us, because I don't think a lot of people realize that they even have pride or what it really is. but it was bad. And so much so that I refuse to do what I'm doing right now because of pride. I was like, there are certain things that I'm just not going to share. And there's certain parts of my testimony that I just didn't necessarily feel comfortable sharing because I still was felt guilt and shame. But it's a new day and we are sharing, and I'm so excited to do that. So I appreciate you being here. I hope you come on back. Stick with me. And I'll be praying for you as you pray for me. I'll see you in my next one.